What is up, people of the internet? It is Pastor Alex back at you with another video for Christ's Redemption Church. And today we're going to be talking about the Urim and the Thummim. So let's get into it. What is it? So we first really get a glance at it is in Exodus chapter 28, verse 30. And I'm reading from the New King James Version. It says, "So Aaron shall," we're in verse 29 through 30, but the specific part is in 30. But it says, "So Aaron shall bear the names of the sons of Israel on the breastplate of judgment over his heart when he goes into the holy place as a memorial before the Lord continually. And you shall put in the breastplate of judgment the Urim and the Thummim, and they shall be over Aaron's heart when he goes in before the Lord. So Aaron shall bear the judgment of the children of Israel over his heart before the Lord continually." So with the Urim and Thummim, they are biblical divination tools. They're used by the high priest to discern God's will. And that's what Aaron's doing in this chapter or this verse. So you're going to see it in what I just read, which is Exodus 28, verse 30, Leviticus 8, verse 8, Numbers 27, verse 21, and 1 Samuel 28, verse 6. So let's talk about the meaning of the names. Urim usually means lights, and Thummim possibly means perfections, right? So together, they may imply light and truth, or perfect decisions, carried inside the breastplate of judgment worn by the high priest, where it says, "And you shall put in the breastplate of judgment, and they shall be over Aaron's heart when he goes in before the Lord." So let's look at the historical and biblical use of this. So first mentioned in Exodus, like we talked about, during Moses' time. Aaron was his brother. It is used primarily during the pre-monarchy and early monarchy periods. So by Ezra, chapter 2, verse, I believe, 63, their use was more ceremonial. So let's go over to Ezra, chapter 2, verse 63. Okay, and it says, "And the governor said to them that they should not eat of the most holy things till the priest could consult with the Urim and Thummim." So they were ceremonial. There was like a yes or no sort of answer, guilty, innocent. They were used to cast lots, to like receive that kind of binary answer. So whether someone had lineage to the priesthood, like where they descended from, which was happening in Ezra, those different things, they were having the high priest look and ask God for that yes or no answer. By that time, that's how it developed. It went from being a breastplate ornamentation to ceremonial. So we see that evolution there. Prophets and kings may have consulted God through the high priest using these. So then the question becomes, did the prophets use them? The Urim and Thummim were used before the rise of classical prophecy. Later prophets like Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel do not mention using them. Prophets received visions and direct words from God, but they were distinct from the Urim Thummim use. So were they cast or worn? That's the question. Did it evolve? So originally, it was, like I said, carried in the high priest's breastplate. Possibly like small stones, dice, or sticks. Like the scholar, we don't have archaeological evidence of those. We just go based on the writings and what was discussed kind of extra biblically outside of the Bible, archaeology, in other communities and stuff. So scholars suggest that they were cast like lots to receive God's answer. That was actually very common in the cultures in that area. Later Jewish traditions speculate their glow or movement was supernatural, but this is not confirmed in the Bible. We don't have enough information to know exactly how they functioned, other than it was used as an artifact to get a yes or no or some sort of binary answer from God. So let's look at the archaeology. So there, like I said, there's no confirmed archaeological discovery of the actual Urim and Thummim. However, lot casting tools and inscriptions from the ancient Near East show similar divination practices. So I said earlier it was common in the cultures around the area. They reflect ancient cultural norms where rulers and priests sought divine answers through physical objects. Artifacts were very, very important. So I'm going to refer back to the Bible verses, and we're going to kind of talk about how they were specifically mentioned in those verses. So in the Exodus verse, chapter 28, verse 30, we read that. It says that they were placed in the breastplate. In Leviticus 8, verse 8, Moses places them on Aaron, still within the same breastplate realm. Numbers 27, verse 21, Joshua is to inquire of God through the high priest using them. So this is when it starts developing theologically. And then you've got 1 Samuel 28, verse 6, where Saul sought the Lord but received no answer, neither by dreams, prophets, or Urim, which is interesting. Like a side note, that this is part of why they think there was a yes or no binary answer here. With Saul, it may have been putting on like a neutral answer. So it may have been a die where there were multiple sides and you only had the yes or the no, and then the other sides were kind of blank. There is speculation that that's why he wasn't getting an answer, as he was getting a yes, no, or a blank, blank. So it's speculation, but it's an interesting thing to think about if it did look similar to the artifacts found around the area. And then we read Ezra chapter 2, verse 63, where it was talking about awaiting a priest to use the Urim and Thummim properly. So those are the verses that are specifically talking about it. Now, there are some scholarly insights that if you want to pursue some more information, most scholars believe that they were a form of sacred lots. There are scholars like Dan McClellan, Michael Coogan, and Carol Mayers. They discuss them as culturally embedded tools of discernment. And then you have modern biblical scholars that see them as part of an ancient Israelite priestly practice, which eventually replaced by prophecy and scripture. So definitely look into that if that's something that interests you. And let me know if you have anything else to add to the conversation, or maybe some requests on topics to cover in the future. And with that, like, subscribe, and check us out at Christ's, with an S at the end, Christ'sRedemptionChurch.com. I'll see you in the next one.